Imagine a video game world. Players are in a desolate planet. There's nothing but rocks and dirt, and any last remaining buildings are covered in moss and on their last legs. Storms are ferocious when they come, and natural disasters are more destructive than we've ever seen. Most of the world's species are extinct or they're nearing extinction. This isn't a very ideal place, but this is a very probable future with how climate change is messing up the world right now. Climate change is somewhat natural. Climates do change over time, but that time occurs over hundreds of thousands of years. In the past 200 years, ever since the start of the Industrial Revolution, the Earth has seen an extremely fast climate change. There have been an increase of fossil fuels and carbon emissions, and they're getting shockingly high in a relatively short amount of time. John Larson, a director at the Rhodium Group, says if we're trying to avoid the absolute worst and scariest impacts of climate change, we should be transforming the energy system far faster than we are. There are multiple factors that contribute to air pollution, and that in and of itself starts a chain reaction, but there are renewable energy sources that can lower greenhouse gas emissions and help repair the earth. Because who doesn't want to live in a happy, healthy planet, right? Air pollution is one of the biggest causes of climate change, and ever since the Industrial Revolutions, humans have been pumping greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, and ozone into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases warm the earth by trapping the heat that comes from the sun, as they don't let the heat escape back into space. And the level of greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere is increasing at a super fast rate. Christina Lyons reports that heat trapping carbon dioxide emissions are increasing so quickly that by 2040, the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere could raise by 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, above pre-industrial levels, according to working scientists with the United Nations. There are multiple factors that can contribute to air pollution. The biggest being, carbon emissions from cars and trucks and whatnot, as well as carbon emissions from powering homes and residential areas across the world. Factories also pump literal tons of carbon dioxide gas into the air, and they've been doing so since the Industrial Revolution. 22% of greenhouse gas emissions, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, 22% of greenhouse gas emissions in 2018 came from industry. Nuclear plants don't directly cause or produce carbon dioxide, but mining and refining uranium also leads to producing greenhouse gases. The pollution of the air then leads to a massive chain reaction of effects that do progressively get worse as time goes on. As the air and atmosphere heat up due to the heat energy from the sun, glaciers and ice caps begin to melt. As they melt, animals that live in those habitats will start to die off because they're losing their habitats. Like polar bears, they tend to starve to death because as the ice sheets get thinner, it becomes harder for these bears to go across their domain, their habitat, and seek out the prey they need to gain enough weight to survive winter. They also have a shorter hunting season, and it leads to them having to get food closer to human communities and sometimes substituting a seal for some bird eggs, which is it's a very poor substitute compared to seal. And as sea levels rise from the melting glaciers, floods and tsunamis become more common in coastal areas and become more destructive. I believe that that we as a collective force need to focus on putting more renewable energy farms throughout the world. There should be solar and wind farms in areas with ideal production, obviously, and these farms should deliver their energy through the grid to cities. This constitutes creating a more suitable grid for this different power system. But Babcock Ranch in Florida is the country's first community to be powered entirely by the sun. So they are obviously doing something right. They have 343,000 solar panels, and it has one of the largest battery systems for storing energy. Matt Mossman reported that once the community's energy needs have been met, um, the community shares any extra power with homes outside of Babcock Ranch. This is obviously very helpful to the neighboring areas because that also reduces greenhouse gas emissions for them. There should be more cities throughout the world doing this, um, you know, being completely powered by solar or wind or hydro energy, and spreading that energy to neighboring cities if those cities are still using fossil fuels. And a pretty major counter argument to greenhouse is to closing fossil fuel production plants and building renewable energy ones are the matter of jobs. There's a fear that people in the fossil fuel industry will lose all their jobs, but there are still hundreds of thousands of jobs in the solar and wind farm industry because you need to build the facilities and maintain those facilities to make sure they're running at maximum capacity. So it's not really a matter of losing jobs, but more retraining people for a different job. Today, I talked to you guys about the effects that climate change is causing and how we can stop those effects from getting worse by using renewable energy farms to power cities instead of using fossil fuels that produce greenhouse gases. Because the unprecedented rate at which the climate of the Earth is changing is very scary, and it needs to be taken more seriously. If more people get behind renewable energy and stop relying on fossil fuels, the planet as a whole will recover, and all species will thrive in a healthy world. Thank you.